The Ironheart reviews are in, and they're not good. Who didn't see that coming? I mean, I wonder why that happened. Well, it looks like the Ironheart show is an absolute disaster, to quote the Daily Beast. I'd love to say I hate to say I told you so, but I don't. I told you so. I knew this show would be a mess back when Disney announced it in 2020 because the character Riri Williams is a mess. Like I've said in previous videos, she's been written terribly by damn near everyone who's touched the character, including her creator Brian Michael Bendis. From her inception, Riri Williams has been presented as an entitled, arrogant, narcissistic thief who pitches fits when she doesn't get her way. This is in the books in both her Invincible Iron Man run and her own title. This terrible character arc didn't work in the books, and it would stand to reason that a straight TV adaptation wouldn't work either, but this is all the showrunner Chinaka Hodge had to work with. Obviously, Hodge and the other writers could change things for the TV series, but in terms of source material, this is it. And for whatever reason, they stuck to the source material, at least with the broader plot points and Riri's character, and, surprise, it's not getting over. Now, I wasn't interested in the right-leaning YouTube critics' responses because I already know what they're going to say. What I wanted to see was the Hollywood critics' responses because they're usually supportive of characters like Ironheart, these characters who only exist to check a box. However, it seems like their attitudes changed recently, so I wanted to see how they responded. Not well is the answer. I checked Rotten Tomatoes to see how things went. It shows a 70% fresh rating, which looks positive, but when you look at the top critic rating, it's at 50%. Metacritic was less forgiving, showing a score of 57. In short, Ironheart got mixed reviews. Out of curiosity, I checked some of the lower top critic reviews, and I guess somebody got told to stop holding back because some of these are brutal. For example, the Daily Beast wrote, quote, "Only coming alive in its final episode, which should have been the starting point rather than a cliffhangery conclusion, it's further evidence that the once mighty comic book brand has watered itself down with second-rate heroes and adventures." Back at MIT after her sojourn to Wakanda, Riri is so desperate to build her inventions that she's raising cash through illicit means, a strategy that leads to her expulsion. Stunned that the school doesn't want her genius around anymore, she hops in her iron suit and flies home to Chicago, barely making the trip because her Tony Stark-inspired tech is a bit faulty, especially when it comes to its AI. Then we've got Empire's review, quote, "Making a deal with the devil in order to build an armor suit and fulfill creative ambitions without the resources of Tony Stark is a solid starting point, even if the rich themes of access and privilege go mostly unexplored. But it ends up being the first in a mountain of selfish, morally questionable decisions that make Riri hard to root for over the season. This is the most aggressively unheroic hero the MCU has ever produced. Rarely does she save or fight for someone other than herself." Or how about this one from IGN, quote, "Like many MCU heroes, Riri finds poignant, grief-stricken motivation in her loved ones' deaths. She wants to protect the people closest to her, but never in Ironheart do we really see her do so. She just uses the suit to commit crimes and fix problems of her own making." Or this take from Roger Ebert, quote, "At its core, the show struggles with the central question, who is Riri Williams beyond the suit she builds? We're told she's a genius, and her admiration for Stark's tech is clear, but the emotional and philosophical why behind her drive to become a hero remains unexplored through most of the series." I want you to understand that was a struggle. It took me 5 times to get through that without busting up laughing. Now, to be clear, most of the critical reviews were very balanced. They tried to find some positives in the show, most of them citing the actors' performances. The main criticisms were the clunky recap at the beginning of the show, because no one remembers the character from Black Panther 2, the odd blend of sci-fi tech and magic, questionable action scenes in CGI, and Riri's piss-poor character development. It turns out that making the main character someone who only cares about herself and steals to solve her problems doesn't get her over with an audience. Whoever could have seen that coming? Obviously, that was not gonna work. You can't make the main character a selfish, narcissistic kleptomaniac and expect anything good to come out of it. Another problem the critics mention is that the show feels like a story without a purpose. They seem to come away asking the question, what was the point? That's never a good sign, especially when it's coming from people who saw all 6 episodes. As of the making of this video, only 3 of the 6 episodes are out, but apparently something happens in the final episode that basically undermines Riri's entire story arc. Based on those more critical reviews, it sounds like the Ironheart show fell into the same trap as Madam Web. The studio made something just for the sake of making it, not because it had an interesting story to tell. In Ironheart's case, the character was never popular, and neither were most of Marvel's all-new, all-different characters created just to check a box. So giving her a show never made sense. Adapting the stories from the comics would only bring over Riri's less positive qualities, like the more critical reviewers mentioned. But even the positive reviewers don't seem that impressed by the show or Riri Williams. Even they seem to be left with the question, what was the point? And like I said, that's never a good sign. But what do I know? Well, I know that this show was never going to work if they kept Riri Williams as, quote, the most aggressively unheroic hero the MCU has ever produced.